Okay, so when you hear the word corruption, what comes to mind? Probably nothing good, right? We're talking decay, social rot, the whole system just falling apart. It's just a bad word. But what if I told you that one of history's most radical thinkers, Friedrich Nietzsche, looked at all that and saw good news?
I mean, really think about this for a second. What if everything we call social decay, what if that's not an ending, but actually a sign of growth? It's a wild idea, a complete 180 from how we usually think about progress and decline. And well, it's classic Nietzsche.
All right, let's dive into this. To really get what he's saying, we've got to see how he takes this concept of corruption and completely flips it on its head. This is a core part of his whole project, what he called a revaluation of all values. And man, is this a perfect example.
So the way we normally see it is pretty straightforward. Corruption means moral failure. It's social rot. The traditions that used to bind us together are just dissolving. It feels like the end of the line, and yeah, definitely not in a good way.
But here's where Nietzsche throws a curveball. For him, this isn't the end at all. It's a transition. He calls it an intellectual autumn. Think about that. It's when the grip of the collective, the herd instinct, as he famously put it, starts to loosen up. And in that space, something incredible can finally be born. The strong, independent individual.
And according to Nietzsche, these so-called corrupt ages aren't just a big, messy chaos. Nope, they have very specific signs, you could say. Observable tells that a huge shift is happening. So let's break down what those signs are.
Okay, first up, the old authorities start to look a little flimsy. You know, the big institutions, governments, religions, what Nietzsche called the teachers of the object of existence. They lose that aura of unquestionable dignity. People just stop buying what they're selling. Skepticism starts to replace blind faith. And here's a weird side effect. With the big old beliefs gone, a whole bunch of superstition and weird, smaller beliefs often rush in to fill that void.
And this is maybe the biggest one. People just stop following the rules, unconditionally. That whole because I said so or that's just how we do things thing, it stops working. Instead, people start asking, wait a minute, why? And that single question, that demand for a reason, is a huge deal. It's basically a declaration that the old order's spell is broken. So what happens when that big, grand, unifying purpose just fails? Well, a vacuum opens up, and people get what Nietzsche calls greedy for their own little personal truths. It can look pretty chaotic from the outside, right? A vanity of small differences, with everyone trying to have their own unique thing. But, and this is key, Nietzsche sees a purpose in the chaos. He thinks this fragmentation is biologically useful. It's the messy, creative explosion that gives evolution something new to work with. So you've got this chaotic, fertile ground, and it's from this exact environment that the main character of this whole story emerges. When the collective breaks down, the strong, sovereign individual is finally unleashed. And this person, well, they're both dangerous and potentially a genius.
And really, there are two ways to look at this whole thing. On one hand, you have the moralist. They look at this explosion of individualism, and all they see is evil, decay, chaos, and greed. But then you have what Nietzsche calls the noble observer, and they see something completely different. They see eruptions of genius, flashes of creative freedom. They see the potential for a totally new, higher kind of human to be born.
And we've got to be clear, this isn't just about being selfish. It's much deeper. It's about a return to a more sovereign, more fundamental way of being. Nietzsche even calls it an atavistic return, like tapping into something ancient within ourselves. The individual is basically taking back the power they'd given away to the institutions, to the herd. And man, the metaphor he uses for this is just unforgettable. He says the beast of prey is no longer caged. Now, he's talking about those powerful, raw, instinctual parts of us, the parts that have been locked away by a rigid, tired-out moral code. Suddenly, the cage door swings open. It's this huge, magnificent release of all that pent-up energy.
So here's the craziest paradox of all. These dangerous individuals, the ones who break all the rules, in Nietzsche's worldview, they are the actual preservers of the species. Why? Because they're the ones who introduce conflict, tension, and wild new ideas. They're the ones who keep us from just stagnating and becoming predictable. They literally force us to grow.
Okay, so let's tie this all together into one big idea. For Nietzsche, corruption isn't a sickness. It's not the final chapter. It's just a necessary season. It's a vital, cyclical part of how a culture lives and breathes. And that's where he gives us this beautiful central metaphor. Corruption is the autumn of a culture. Think about it.
It's not when things die, it's when the fruit is finally ripe. All the work of spring and summer comes to a head. Sure, the leaves on the old tree are withering and falling, but that has to happen for the harvest to come.
So to sum it all up, corruption actually has a biological purpose. Its job is to prevent stagnation. It creates the fertile, messy ground where individual excellence can finally grow. Yeah, it's a huge price to pay, but it's the price a culture pays for the chance to produce an Übermensch, an exceptional human. In fact, Nietzsche would say a healthy culture has to, eventually, corrupt itself. It needs to fall apart so something even nobler can be born from the rubble.
And this leads us to the ultimate lesson, right from his book, The Gay Science. The highest form of wisdom, the gay science itself, isn't about crying over the old world that's gone. It's not about trying to glue the pieces back together. No, it's about finding the strength, the joy, the absolute freedom to dance on the rumens of that decaying world.
Which of course leaves us with one last big question for ourselves. When we look around today and we see all the old traditions crumbling, all the authorities being questioned, are we just watching it all burn down? Or, if we put on our Nietzsche glasses for a second, are we actually living through one of those chaotic, messy, but incredibly fertile autumns? Are we just waiting for the harvest?